Ross Coulthart says that he was detained by both U.S. Customs and Border Protection Services when he did his interview with David Grusch following the revelations that there were indeed programs that were reverse engineering UAP materials. The fact that we had discovered NHI, non-human bodies. So Ross Coulthart had a sit-down with Jesse Michels, and it was a long conversation. A lot of things were said, and this was one of the ones a lot of people have been discussing. Again, I always tell you should go check out UAP James. It gives a great breakdown of all the stories happening in the world of the topic. So, James clipped this one out. Here is said clip.
I have to admit, I had my computer on auto delete if it was opened.
Yeah.
When I came through customs.
Wow.
And I was ready to go live on national television if I was detained by Border Protection.
Wow.
Which actually happened to me after I did the Grusch story.
Really?
Yeah. After I did the Grusch story, I was detained and held by CBP.
Oh, my God.
And a mutual friend of ours made some inquiries and confirmed that there'd been some kind of a flag put on my file.
Unbelievable.
And unfortunately, it was so high level they couldn't access it. But basically, somebody, I suspect from the agency, had flagged that we want to know when COULTHART comes through next, and let's cause them some mischief. And I have to admit, we have a euphemism in Australia, tearing somebody a new asshole. I just wasn't going to put up with it. And I summoned my anger and basically yelled at Border Protection and said, I strongly advise that you get on the phone, whoever it is that's flagged me, contact them now or tell them I will be going live on television in about 10 minutes to talk about the fact that I'm being illegally held. I have a valid visa. You have no good reason to hold me. If you want to fight, you can have one. And I was let out.
I get so confused with this because, why would he lie about this? I agree that this is probably true. This probably happened to him, and it's also one of those things where it's more pretty much what he just said, right? I don't think this was anything more than, okay, you want to mess with us? We'll show you what we can do. We're going to make your life live in hell now. And then he's decided, he's got that power of the fact that, look, I'm going to go live on television. I'm going to start talking about this thing. And this is why, like, social media and those things, it's such a different time. It's such a different time that social media has been weaponized way more than it ever was in the past. Clearly was, but it was a lot more of a process to say, okay, look, I'm going to make this public on the nightly news. And then you got to wait. You got to get on the air. You got to do this. You got to find a segment. Now, so you just turn your phone on. You just go live. I was like, okay, look, here's the deal. I'm live. Put me into News Nation. I'm going to tell you guys what just happened. And so I just did a members video. And essentially what I do there is, if you guys put questions in, and you remember, I do an exclusive video where I answer the questions. And one of those questions was more so about, like, the topic and what's been going on with it, and is there a lot going on in general, and is it still something that people are taking serious? And it's like, yeah, I think the answer is to that, all of it, but there's just so much going on in the world at the moment outside of this that, like any other, look, there were tons of topics that were the front thing of the news last week that are no longer those front things, and they're still going on, but they're not being covered in the news at all. This is a topic that wasn't being covered in the news in general, but even more so when it was kind of picking up steam on social media and everything too. Even that, it's being overshadowed with what's going on in the world currently. So when you hear stories like this one, this is more of those, like, it doesn't surprise me story, more so because Jesse was like, wow, I can't, like, even when Jesse is hearing it and he's responding to it, I bet you if you asked Jesse and you said, does that surprise you? I would assume he'd say, not really. Because it's shocking in the fact that, okay, they get him, they do that, they don't want him talking to David Grusch, which that is the biggest story, one of the biggest stories. Like, hypothetically, if it turns out that all this stuff is true, or the things that David Grusch has said, and it comes out and disclosure happens, and it's going to be one of the biggest moments, and it already is one of the biggest moments in the UAP topic, David Grusch coming forward. Now, Ross Coulthart has had other times that he's tried to, I think, mimic and get the same kind of boost that he did with Grusch with Jake Barber. That didn't really pop. The footage that came in, that didn't really pop. The fact that he said, that all hell was going to break loose in the beginning of 2025, we're 6 months in, all hell has not broken loose, does not take away from the fact that he is, I think, very, very instrumental in this. I wouldn't put him in the George Knapp category, but he's certainly one of the more influential reporters in this space. He's polarizing. I think at this point that's fair to say. I think that there's a lot of things at times that Ross will say, and I'm on board with, and I applaud, and I really appreciate his effort, his spirit, and you see it in there. Where the guy, he's going to fight back. But there's sometimes I think he gets a little showmany, and he gets a little kind of he puts in. You kind of have to put on a show. I get it, but sometimes, as I mentioned, with the hell breaking loose and other things of that nature, they're speaking before you really should. And I think he's guilty of that. I think there's a lot of people that are guilty of that. But this particular situation, this story, shows, I think, the man's spirit where he's going to say, no, you're not going to stop me this particular way. And I think it's important for him to tell this story, because I also think it's important for other people to hear this, right? Because diving into more, I'm sure him, Jeremy Corbell, other people, the kind of threats and things that they get for continuously pushing on this subject, I'm sure is pretty substantial. So I'm glad that he's out there telling this story. I'm glad he's out there talking about this. And it is interesting that it did happen, but again, not surprising. What do you guys make of this story? Do you think, true, false, not surprising, surprising? Who's doing it? Does it show deeper powers out there that are able to do this? I want to hear your thoughts. Let us know. Again, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. And we'll see you probably a little later on today. Thanks again.